Keystone Cops, that it would not affect the changes that it espoused, the wonderful changes. In England, they had to have a socialist so-called party. You know why? Because soldiers were coming back from hells that you can't even imagine, coming back to empty towns where their whole bloodline had been wiped out. Revolution was rampant. They couldn't be, and so the government realized we better do something to appease this because they're ready to, we're still living in our mansions, remember? Ever been to England? Think if you're a soldier who's watched your comrades die on the fields of Flanders, in the fields of France, coming home and still watching these regents, in luxury there. What were you going to do? Think of England in those days, what was going to happen. So they appeased the situation by giving you some welfare, giving you some free housing, a car that's practically useless, and a few other, little benefits to appease the foment that was coming. But this party would become so ineffectual and counterproductive that even the most reprehensible forms of conservatism would in fact gain support. The neoconservatism of the present-day Bush dynasty couldn't have existed without this intentional capitulation. This was recently made evident in the last election. It was part of the meta plan that Kerry would be, quote-unquote wishy-washy and a flip-flopper. Now, the man, again, an overworld figure, don't get me wrong, this man is not the creator of the Fabian Society, but he's technically its leader. From the London School of Economics, leader of the Fabian Society, Sidney West. Let's listen to the man himself. He says, to play those millions of minds, to watch them, and there's the word, the key word, slowly, remember, Fabian? To watch them slowly respond to an unseen stimulus, to guide their aspirations without their knowledge. All this, whether in high capacities or in humble, is a big and endless game of chess of ever extraordinary excitement. They get a kick out of it. That's the way a doctor in a laboratory talks about the rats when he walks in the morning. The Fabian Society infiltrated a group known as Theosophy, a very sacred order created by one of the most powerful female personages the world has ever played host to, Madame Blavatsky. Researchers who have not done their homework blame her for many of the machinations of the Fabian Society. That is erroneous and is karmically reprehensible to blame beings of the light when you haven't bothered doing your homework. This woman went blue in the face, warning that her society was being taken over, warning against combining spirituality and politics. She would have turned over in her grave to what happened next. But you see, she had already created a perfect edifice where the princes and the dukes and the intelligentsia of the world were already members. So the insidious force that wanted to move in, why reinvent the wheel? Move in and take over. It's ready and waiting. A British intelligence operation, says James Wardner in his fine book Unholy Alliance. He says, swept Madame Blavatsky aside, and she was replaced by the British Fabian Society co-founder Annie Besant. Foster Bailey, a 33rd degree Mason, was a leader of that society. His wife, Alice A. Bailey, founded what's known as the Lucifer Trust. Alice Bailey was in the broad circles of society around Queen Victoria, and she always sought the wealthy and titled converts. In her own words, listen to this. She says, behind the division of humanity stand those enlightened ones. All right? So now she's talking about enlightened ones, whose right and privilege it is to watch over human evolution and guide the destinies of men. This they do through the implanting of ideas in the minds of the world thinkers, so that these ideas in due time receive recognition and eventually become the controlling factors in human life. They train the members of the new group of world servers in the task of changing these ideas into ideals. These in turn become the desired objectives of the thinkers and are then taught to the powerful middle class and worked up into world forms of governments or religion, thus forming the basis, and she wrote this at the turn of the century, of the new world order. What's basically this caption telling us? That there's some on high force, the enlightened ones. Remember again the reference? And they are affecting by means unknown to us those policies that, as I'm saying, the characters of the people's champions put into work. Now, as we know, they moved in and took over the reins of the American government through the years, and of course you've listened to many other speakers talk about this. But we want to look for a moment at these American contexts and at the hidden enemies that operate here. Because your dollar bill, as I hope you know by now, and also your cities, and many, many of the other symbols of state and government bear these secret society emblems, coming out of Egypt, but also coming out of the secret society world.